was imprisoned here, was enslaved right there at Mount Misery, and that's where Donald Rumsfeld now lives. And she said, "I can't comment right now, I'm in church." Which brings us to the latest news, because often when you hear difficult news, you think, I need something hopeful, something that will give us reason to think that we are moving forward. How is it that the United States came to represent torture in the world? And I opened the Seattle Times, and a big thank you, because I have a column in the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, and now the Seattle Times has picked the column up. And I went to page A11, and it's a picture of a famous judge from Spain named Baltasar Garzón, you know, who went after General Augusto Pinochet. And it's a photograph of him, a former U.S. Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, of John Yoo, the former Justice Department lawyer. It says, a high-profile Spanish judge has initiated a possible investigation of alleged torture and war crimes by 6 former U.S. officials who created the legal framework for interrogations at the prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, a senior Spanish official said Saturday. Judge Baltasar Garzón of Spain's highest court requested that a prosecutor examine a complaint that inmates' rights advocates had filed against Bush administration officials last year. The prosecutor will issue a recommendation on the merits of opening a case on whether the court has jurisdiction. The prosecutor probably will respond by the end of April. It says the 6 former U.S. officials named in the complaint are Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, William Haynes II, a former counsel at the Pentagon, John Yoo, former Justice Department lawyer. The senior official said they're seen as the brains behind the framework of policies and legal opinions that created the Guantanamo facility, who justified harsh interrogation tactics and decided that captured al-Qaeda suspects were not protected by the Geneva Conventions. The other Americans named in the complaint are Jay Bybee, Yoo's former boss at Justice, Douglas Feith, the former Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, David Addington, who was the Chief of Staff and legal advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney. It stops there, but not all investigations or calls for investigations are stopping there. It's very important to understand what has happened. President Obama says we must just move forward. But so many people, including Mary Robinson, who I just interviewed, the former president of Ireland, former High Commissioner for Human Rights, was saying, yes, it's important to move forward, but the way we do that is by taking account. Imagine if the policy in this country were, well, open the prisons, free all the prisoners inside. The U.S. prides itself on being a law and order nation. Let's forget the past. Let's just move forward all together. I mean, it's an interesting philosophy. Will that be the philosophy for this country? And a shout out to all those prison activists who are calling for prison reform. But I don't think that's what those who are saying move forward, don't look back, are all about. Because the question is, how do we have this not happen again? Now, one of the first actions in office President Obama took was to end torture. He said was to close Guantanamo within a year. But they're not stopping extraordinary rendition. Extraordinary rendition. That's White House for kidnapping. And that's what has happened, not to tens, not to hundreds, but to thousands of people around the world because of U.S. policy, where someone is picked up off the streets of Milan, Italy, or say Maher Arar, the Canadian citizen who was picked up. We started our second book, Static. David and I, my brother, also a journalist, have written our 3 books together with Maher. Maher Arar, a Canadian citizen who was born in Syria but fled, wasn't in the Syrian military, fled with his family to Canada. Now has his own family, wife and 2 kids. And several years ago, coming back from family vacation, transiting through JFK just to go home to Canada, U.S. officials take him off the plane, put him in a detention facility in New York, and then send him off to Syria. He's begging, he's pleading, he's saying, what have I done wrong? He says, if you believe there is some problem, send me home where I am a citizen to Canada. Let them imprison me. Let them try me. Why would you send me to the place I fled? He said, they will surely torture me. He cried all the way to Syria as he was jetted over there on one of those private jets. And sure enough, he was tortured, he was interrogated, he was held in a grave-like cell for more than 10 months, for close to a year, and then as inexplicably as he was taken, he was released. A broken man back to Canada. The Canadian government did an investigation. Why was he taken? Awarded him $10 million, fully exonerated him. And even the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, a very pro-Bush ally, castigated the United States. Where was the apology, he said. Now Maharar cannot even fly into the United States. He's on a terrorist watch list when it should be the United States who is apologizing to him. He is sued, his case has been thrown out, he's sued again. But how can this happen? It doesn't make us safer. When people see what we do, when the most famous image of the invasion of Iraq is that Iraqi prisoner with a bag over his head, standing on a box, arms out, Christ-like figure, electrodes dangling from his fingertips. Maybe not most famous to us in the United States. That might be the statue of Saddam Hussein going down, because we saw it thousands of times in the media. But if for the rest of the world, the most famous image is this Iraqi prisoner, what's going to happen if a U.S. citizen, a U.S. soldier, a U.S. official is captured somewhere and his captors say, we will do it the American way? America is better than this. There is so much we can do to change the image of the United States in the world and at the same time change things here at home. It's absolutely critical. It does all start from home. And it's interesting to be here at the Green Festival on this week of anniversaries. This is the 20th anniversary